Welcome, my dear students. This Aristotle speaks to you. Over 2,400 years ago, I postulated the concept of motion, and I concluded that objects are set into motion by the influence of a force. I observed that objects eventually come to a rest when this force ceases to act upon them. However, the understanding of friction still remained elusive to my understanding.
Hey everyone, I'm Galileo, and way back, over 400 years ago, I was super curious about why objects move or stop. I noticed that objects didn't always work the way Aristotle said they did. Like, I wondered, what if there was nothing at all, not even a tiny bit, making things slow down, no friction? I couldn't just zap away all the friction to test it out because it's always there a little bit, even on super smooth surfaces. So, instead of doing a hands-on experiment, I thought really hard about it and did a thought experiment. That's when you imagine what would happen instead of actually doing it. It's pretty neat because it helps you figure out stuff that's tough to test in real life. In 1590, I wrote down all my thoughts about motion in a book. I said that objects don't need a push or pull to keep going unless something else is stopping them, like friction or air pushing back. But back then, people were like, no way. You always need to push objects to keep them moving. They didn't get that they were pushing just to fight against the friction or air resistance. If none of that was in the way, you wouldn't need to push at all. It sure took a while, but eventually, people started to think, maybe he's onto something. And that's how we got to understand motion a lot better. So remember, just because you can't see something right away doesn't mean it's not worth thinking about.
Hello there, young learners. I'm Sir Isaac Newton. About a century after Galileo's time, I expanded on his ideas and came up with 3 basic rules about how things move, which we call the laws of motion. My first law of motion is pretty simple. If nothing messes with an object, it will keep doing what it's already doing. If it's sitting still, it'll stay still. If it's moving, it'll keep moving straight and at the same speed. Now, every object doesn't really like to change what it's doing, whether that's staying still or moving. We call this reluctance inertia. You've probably noticed this when you try to push something really heavy and find it hard to get it moving. That's inertia showing you it's a real thing.